to the purchase of or acquisition of a title to real property by certain aliens or foreign entities.
The chair recognizes Mr. Hefner to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we hashed this bill out pretty thoroughly yesterday. I just want to reiterate that I'm grateful for the respectful dialogue that we've had on this bill and for all of your input and feedback during the process. I would like to take a moment to thank both Speaker Phelan and Speaker Burrows for recognizing how significant this issue is and taking the bold action in the recent months to make it a priority. Additionally, I want to recognize and thank Senator Kolkhorst and her staff and all their hard work on this. They've been working on this for a long time, and she kind of blazed the trail for us here. So I want to thank her for her tremendous leadership on this priority, as well as all the members of the Select Committee on Securing Texas from Hostile Foreign Organizations and the members serving with me on Homeland Security, Public Safety, and Veterans Affairs, who have spent many hours and long days with me working towards this thoughtful resolution.
Mr. Speaker?
Ms. Gervin Hawkins, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Yes.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Representative Hefner, for answering my questions. I did get clear yesterday on how our professional athletes, performers, and artists would be exempted or not included in this, or will they be? I need it on the record so that, because I'm being asked, so could you help explain in layman terms how they will not be adversely impacted, or if they will, let us know that publicly.
Yeah, if they're here in the country lawfully, then they're not going to be affected.
And when you define lawfully, what do you mean by that?
As in, not unlawfully.
So I want to be clear, because this is serious business here. So those that
I
are
am
laughing,
being serious. That's
okay,
a serious answer.
I want to
and a
be
serious
serious
question.
about this.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
this is an important issue
I agree.
for many people. Okay, so what you're saying is lawful is a visa of any type that is current. Yes or no?
If that fits the definition of lawfully present, then yes. If that's lawfully present, yes.
So a current visa means lawfully, but they're also restricted for purchases and investments for only 1 year.
Oh, that was in the 1 year limit was on leaseholds.
So they could only lease a place for 1 year.
I believe the leasehold exemption was an exemption in the bill, and it was wide open at first, but we strengthened that down to only 1 year.
To 1 year.
I don't know that the visa portion really affects the leaseholds.
Say that again? Could you speak up a little bit, sir?
The bill has originally come before the floor. Leaseholds were exempted from the bill entirely. And so, but then we limited to where those leaseholds could only, of 100 years or more, or less. And so we reduced that to 1 year.
So they can only stay here 1 year. So if
No, they can only lease for 1 year.
for 1 year, and they
At a
could
time.
never buy a home.
No, you're getting two things conflated.
All right, well, help me understand. That's why I want to be clear on it. And I know you got your posse around you, but
I don't have a posse around me.
what
Ms.
I'm trying to
Hawkins.
do is understand what you're doing.
We're going to talk about being
okay?
respectful. Let's not call people down here a posse. These people are supporting me in this bill, as we do a lot of other bills.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
I immensely apologize. That's not my
problem.
goal to call anybody anything. I just want us to be laser focused. So as the professionals are thinking about this, and as our professional leagues need to do what they need to do, okay, that they're doing it the right way, lawfully.
Yes, ma'am. The leasehold exemption in the bill, leaseholds were completely exempted. So nothing in the bill applied to leaseholds of 100 years, of leases that were 100 years or less. We had an amendment, though, to restrict that lease provision to where they could only lease for 1 year at a time. The acquisition, the purchase of property is where the lawfully present visa holders came into play. So it's two different things.
So if I'm lawfully here year one, I can lease.
No,
And then
ma'am.
if I'm lawfully
No,
here year...
leaseholds are exempted.
Oh, they're exempted.
They're exempted. Anybody can lease
Forever.
for 1 year at a time.
1 year at a time. But what happens year two? That's what I'm trying to
They
understand.
just have to re-up their lease.
Okay, so they have to apply for their lease again.
They just have to sign a new lease, yes.
Okay. And what that does is help monitor if I'm still here lawfully, if I'm in good standing.
No, we're still conflating leasing property and owning property. Leaseholds, when the bill got here from the Senate version, leaseholds were exempted from the bill. The bill didn't limit or restrict, had anything to do with leaseholds of 100 years or less. Didn't matter about visas, didn't matter about anything. And so we took that and said, we're going to restrict that down because we don't want just anybody to be able to lease forever.
But you're confusing me. So I know you're saying what came over. Let's talk about the bill you have, okay? Let's focus on that so I can understand it and relay it to the people who are asking me questions. I'm sorry, Representative. I just want to be clear.
If you're here lawfully under this bill as amended, then you're fine.
For 1 year on my lease.
No, that was,
Don't,
Look,
I'm
the lease-
fine on my lease.
you're fine on your lease. I mean, yes, but I wish we could have talked to me offline before we got here. We could have worked this out looking over the bill. The leasehold provision in the bill was an exception to the bill. Nothing in the bill applied to leaseholds of less than 100 years. That was an exemption. All we did is said, instead of exempting leaseholds of 100 years or less, we're going to exempt leaseholds of 1 year.
So in practical,
So that doesn't matter. Visa, that has nothing to do with that. The visas, the lawfully present provision has to do with the purchase or ownership of property, not leasing.
gotcha. Okay. All right. I want to check for understanding, so I want to regurgitate what you're saying so I understand it. So if I'm a professional athlete who come here, I can lease, as long as I'm lawfully here,
Yes.
I can lease a property up to 1 year, or really that doesn't apply?
Yes, or you can buy it.
Or I can buy it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I lease a condo for a year and I want to buy it, I can buy it after that?
If you're lawfully present, yes.
If I'm lawfully present?
Yes.
Okay. And so if I'm lawfully present, now my second year I bought my condo, okay?
Okay.
What else do I need to do?
Remain lawfully present, I guess. If you're lawfully present at the time of the purchase, then you're fine.
Okay. Now, if I want to invest, there's, I've got an investment group that are approaching me because my contract is $80 million a year. And I want to now make investments. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about what my restrictions are, what I can and cannot do.
If you're lawfully present, there are no restrictions.
There's no restrictions.
Correct.
Okay. And so the only thing that prohibits that is if that country is on the bad people list, right?
No, if you're lawfully present, you're fine.
Even though the country that I'm from may be one of those countries that is not amenable to America.
If you've come here the right way, through the front door, in a legal manner, then you're fine.
So I've went through the process, because what was shared with me with the Spurs executive was that it would take years for me to get the citizenship, right?
I mean, yes, I'm not an expert on the citizenship process, but I do know it's pretty
Understood.
difficult. Yeah.
So through those years, once I become a citizen, then my property is no longer in danger. Is that a fact?
The bill is only prospective, looking forward. So if to my understanding of the bill and the way the laws work, if you're lawfully present at the time of the purchase of this property, then you're fine. Now, if your visa expires and then you're here unlawfully, you could not purchase any more property in the future.
So if what happens, let's say I slip up and don't do my proper visa, okay? I think there's a 90-day window or grace period or whatever, and I hit that, I'm traveling on the road, I forgot, and then I'm no longer lawfully, for the moment, I'll say, okay?
Right.
What I have bought and invested in is not in danger, correct?
That is my understanding, correct.
Okay. So then I need to get myself together.
Correct.
And then get lawful again.
Yes.
Okay. And that's on purchasing, leasing, or whatever I need to
Right,
do.
and that's why the bill is prospective looking forward. It doesn't go retroactive and look back. That would be unconstitutional.
So those individuals who have done those things today, or until the bill takes effect, their property is not in jeopardy, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Representative, for
Yes, ma'am.
answering my questions. I really
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate it.
You bet.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Jones, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
I do.
Gentleman yields.
So, under this bill, even if someone is lawfully present, they can only lease property. And let me say this, I don't have a lot of questions. I'm asking yes or no answers. You can choose to answer them yes or no or not, but it'll be way quicker.
I like yes or no,
Okay,
unless
all
it's a
right.
gotcha.
Let's do this. So under this bill, even if someone is lawfully present, they can only lease property 1 year at a time, correct?
It doesn't matter if you're lawfully present or not. You can only lease land 1 year at a time
Okay,
if you're from a designated country.
okay. So at the end of that year, are they required to vacate the property?
Say that again?
At the end of the year, when the lease ends, are they required to vacate the property?
I mean, they would have to renew the lease or
So-
vacate the property.
So they can stay at the same property?
Yes.
Okay.
If they renew their lease.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Then-
Speaker, I can't hear.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rails.
The lease would have to be renewed.
Okay.
But the bill really isn't about leases. The leaseholds were exempted for leases of 100 years or less.
Except
we just
for a
took
year.
that down to a year.
So it is included,
But
which is why I'm concerned. I mean, I grew up as a kid. My mother, we leased and we moved from place to place if she couldn't get her
You can lease
renewed.
for a year, and you can
Right.
you can renew that lease forever.
Okay, so if they can't renew their lease for whatever reason, maybe because they're targeted, because of this bill, so do they have to leave the state? What happens then?
I'm not advised. This bill doesn't require anybody to leave the state.
And can landlords legally refuse to renew a lease just because of the person's nationality?
I'm not advised of all the legalities around that. That would be worked out between the lessor and the lessee.
So have you thought about how renters are supposed to plan their lives if they have to renegotiate housing every 12 months?
This bill is about preventing hostile foreign adversaries from owning land or real property in the state of Texas.
I understand
I mean,
what
you're getting off on leaseholds over here. That's like a little bitty speck of the bill.
But
That
it's
is an
a-
exemption in the bill. They can do leases wide open up to 1 year.
But
and
but that actually is if you've never like grown up like being a renter, that's a really big deal. Housing stability is a really big deal,
Okay.
right? So if you own a house, obviously you can stay there forever. But when you're renting, you're constantly
But you have
worried about if
you have a 1 year contract, and just like every other contract in this state, at the end of that contract can be renewed, renegotiated, canceled. I mean,
but-
that's between the lessor and the lessee.
right. But when you're a poor person, sometimes they want you to have longer contracts, right? They're going to go with somebody who can
Longer
enter
than a
into it.
year.
Oh yeah,
On a
there are
home?
people that like stability. They want rental income coming in. So trust me, that happens. So what I'm saying is,
Well, I would
people-
suggest they get lawfully present, and then they're
but they
fine.
are, and therein, which brings me to this: if you are here lawfully, you are not from you are not like you're from maybe I don't know from whatever country the the hostile country police decide is hostile. If you're from one of those countries and you fled there and you're here, that's the last thing you want to have to worry about is whether you have a place to stay, like every year. That's a big deal.
Well, get your paperwork in order and it'll be
That's
fine.
a big deal. But have you thought about that this could result in a situation where families with children are forced to move year after year, school after school? Have you thought about that?
This bill does not affect anything to do with look, they would do their business just like any other lease, Representative Jones. At the end of the lease, it has to be renegotiated. That's just the way the world works.
Right, but leases like just because aren't just limited to a year. There are leases that are longer, is the point that I'm making.
There are not very many residential leases longer than a year.
But there are.
Well,
I grew up in that situation.
then they'll have to renegotiate it a year under this bill.
And does this not create a it actually creates state mandated instability for renters who are here lawfully? I mean, and I guess that's my problem.
I think a one-year lease is sufficient for stability. That is standard. A one-year lease is standard.
I think, Mr. Chair, that this is problematic, and I think that the fact that people don't think that rental lease agreements for a year are like no big deal.
Well, I
right?
disagree.
Housing instability is a really big problem in Texas.
Well, then they need to
And
get
this
their
is just
legal
gonna
status in
cause more
order,
of it.
and then they won't have an issue.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Wu, for what purpose?
I motion to preemptively extend the time.
You're good right now.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Yes.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you. Mr. Hefner, yesterday, I remember you kept repeating a statement saying that you're not going after an immutable characteristic in this law.
That is a fact.
Okay. And let me just clarify this. Is national origin an immutable characteristic in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. And what is it about this bill, what decision in this bill are you basing the functions of your bill on that you say is not an immutable characteristic?
This bill is based on your actions or your affiliations with hostile foreign adversaries.
Okay. And part of those actions, as you said yesterday, was being born into a country and being one of their citizens.
I believe that this bill also applies to a citizen of a non-hostile country that is domiciled in a hostile country. It is not based on a person's immutable characteristics. Plain and simple, is not.
Okay. So we're not just concerned about, let's just, not beat around the bush. No, we're not just concerned about Chinese citizens. We're also concerned about, let's say, British citizens who are in China, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's an
If they're
interesting point.
domiciled there. If they're
Yes,
domiciled there.
They're domiciled there. Literally.
If they're a British citizen and they're domiciled in a hostile country, then yes.
Yes, so are many Americans. There are so many American expats who work in China, who live full-time in China, working for many American companies, including Walmart, Microsoft.
Citizens of this country fall under a whole different set of rules. If they're associated with a hostile foreign actor, they're going to be investigated and prosecuted for espionage and all kinds of federal crimes. And so this bill does not relate to American citizens because they would fall under a whole host of other issues.
But a British citizen living in China, working for, I don't know, let's say Walmart, would fall into your bill, correct? Based on what you just said.
Yes.
Okay. And the rationale for that is that because they're in China, therefore their relationship, their presence, and their proximity in that country creates a threat.
How is a British citizen domiciled in China going to be buying property in the United States?
You
If
can
they're
buy
working if they're working at the Walmart in China, how are they going to buy land in Texas? How would that
because
work?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Wu, for what purpose?
move to extend the time, please.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The gentleman's time is extended.
Because that British citizen may have a summer home in the United States. They may be quite wealthy. They may just have family here and they want a condo here. They want an apartment here. They want to buy a small ranch here because they think it's really fun to dress up as a cowboy and ride a horse and shoot some guns.
Well, then they couldn't do that.
They could not do that, right?
If they're domiciled in a hostile country, they could not.
Absolutely. So it's interesting because I offered an amendment yesterday to say companies that were doing the same thing, companies that were not from China but are in China, worked and have not only are in China but have a direct contractual relationship with the government. You rejected that amendment, didn't you?
This bill says that they have to be headquartered in a hostile country.
Who says
and
they're not? I didn't say they weren't.
You said that an American company that's doing business
Nope.
with the Chinese.
I said a company from anywhere else in the world. They're in China. They're headquartered. They have a headquarters there. They
If they're
have a plant.
headquartered in China,
Sure, why
if
not?
they're headquartered in China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, then
We have
they're not going
Chinese
to be able to buy
companies who are
property here.
headquartered in the United States.
If their headquarters are in the United States, they're free and clear. If their headquarters are in a hostile country, they're not going to be able to buy property here.
Let me go back to national origin. So you're saying that national origin is a protected class, correct?
We
Is
do
it
not
immutable
discriminate.
character-
It has nothing to do with national origin.
That
The bill
I'm-
has nothing to do with the
Given that, I
person's
understand.
national
I want
origin.
to make sure I understand you're not an attorney. I want to make sure you understand what the current law is. Do you agree with me?
Thankfully, I'm not an attorney. I'm glad I'm not. Go ahead.
Do you agree with me that national origin is a protected class under the Civil Rights Act of 1964?
I'm not advised of the details, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay. You wouldn't challenge me that. You wouldn't challenge the Supreme Court on that. You understand that national origin has been a protected class since the Yickwo case, Yickwo v. Hopkins. I'll give you the site. It's 118 U.S. 356.
This
is a 18.
This
is a
bill
US
does not
Supreme Court
affect
case.
people based on their national origin.
But you're saying that somebody being born in a country, having that citizenship, that is something that they do themselves, and that has nothing to do with
It's
national
based
origin.
on the affiliation or the actions with that foreign adversary, not where they were born.
And yesterday you argued that affiliation can be as simple as, well, being born in that country. That being a citizen of a country is in itself affiliation.
But there is a case where that person is trying to sever those ties with that hostile country and come here the right way and come here legally and escape the oppressive actions of those countries. And so, I mean, the United States is made up of people who have escaped other countries and came here the right way.
And we explained
And we
to
want to
you-
make sure that that's still available. We want that,
and we
that
explained
lane
to
to
you
be open.
numerous times that people cannot do that. They cannot relinquish their own past citizenship until they become United States citizens. Did you heard that, right?
They can take action before they're officially a citizen to sever ties with a hostile foreign adversary. There are many actions that can be taken.
How would they legally do that?
Well, they could apply for citizenship. They could apply for a legal permanent residency. There's a host of different ways.
Do you know that you have to be a permanent resident before you can be a citizen?
There are many steps along the way that a person
would you-
can begin to sever ties with a hostile foreign adversary.
Would you take my word for it that you have to be a green card holder, a permanent resident, before you can become a citizen?
I'll take your word for it.
Okay,
But
so-
this bill doesn't say you have to be an American citizen.
In order to become, like, Mr. Hefner, you are saying that being a citizen is, being born in a country, being a citizen of that other country is a choice that someone can make, and they can unmake that choice anytime they want, right? You're saying they can unmake that choice anytime they want by becoming a citizen, but they cannot become a citizen if
No,
they cannot
you
be a green
said-
card holder,
you said-
and they cannot become a green card holder if they
You
cannot
said
prove
they can
they have
become
the
a citizen.
ability to live here permanently.
You're the one that said they have to become a citizen, not me. I said they have to take action to sever ties with a hostile foreign adversary.
And what is that action?
There are many actions. They can apply for their legal permanent residency, work visa. There's many actions.
Okay. Very good. Earlier, you had stated the urgent need to do this. I've heard you and many others speak repeatedly about the urgent need for China. And could you tell me some of the urgent needs for North Korea?
The urgent needs apply to all hostile adversaries, Mr. Wu. It's not about one country or another. It's about people's actions
Absolutely. So you
with
listen,
people who want to do us harm,
absolutely. Do you
who
listen
actively
for,
talk about having a nuclear button on their desk. I don't want somebody coming from a country working for a dictator that says he wants to nuke the United States, owning land up next to one of my water treatment facilities or a military installation or one of my schools. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Mr. Hefner, do you understand that just because someone is from a country does not mean that they're an agent of that country?
Of course.
But your speech really sounds like that every single person from a
No,
country
sir.
is an agent
Don't,
of the
you're not going to
country.
put words in my mouth, Mr. Wu.
No,
Nobody
in
ever
fact-
said that.
In fact, many other people on this floor who came to the back mic said the same thing, and you never corrected them.
I have never said anything about any particular people.
Okay.
This is about actions.
Can you tell me some of the dangers that are posed by North Korea?
Well, I'll tell you what the North Korean Kim Jong-un said December the 31st, 2017. I'm going to
Things that
finish
he
this
did-
statement, Mr. Wu. He said the entire United States is within range of our nuclear weapons. A nuclear button is always on my desk. This is a reality, not a threat. And if somebody comes to this country from North Korea and they're working for this man, I don't want them owning land in this state. They can get the heck out of here.
Mr. Hefner, you don't understand that every North Korean that is in the United States is a refugee. You understand that? We have no diplomatic
Are they
relationship.
lawfully present?
Yes.
Then they're fine.
Okay. So why are you worried about them?
I'm worried about the ones that are affiliated with and working on behalf of the North Korean government.
And you say affiliated with, is just
People
being
who
from that
haven't
country.
taken actions to sever the ties with a dictatorial, evil regime.
Isn't fleeing that country enough to sever the ties? To say, I'm severing these ties by fleeing this country?
If they're fleeing lawfully, if they just
So
leaving
they
the
don't
country,
have to become
they could
citizens.
leave the country to come here to do harm. That happens all the time.
So all of them are a danger.
No.
Which
Why
one-
do you
which-
keep
which
putting
one of
words in my
them?
mouth?
Which one of them are a danger?
There are people that are coming here
Which
to
ones?
escape the oppressive communist regimes, and then there are people that are coming here to do us harm.
If I brought you a group of North Korean refugees here, could you point to me which one?
That's why we have an investigation process, Mr. Wu. That's why we have a system in place. There's an immigration system, there's a visa system, there's processes for all these things. This bill spells out an investigatory process. We're not going to round up people based on the way they looked. We're not going to do that. This doesn't have anything to do with a person's immutable characteristics. I'm going to keep saying that. I don't care how sick of you get to hearing it.
No,
I'm going to keep saying
I'm
it.
not sick of hearing it. Please say it more.
I'm going to keep saying it.
Is it your intent and belief that your legislation does not take away anyone's rights until after they have been found to have been an agent? of
Correct.
this- Okay.
The
all I
purchase is made, then there's a complaint, then there's an investigation, then there's a hearing, then there's divestiture. There's a whole due process
Just
here.
to be clear, no rights in your bill, if it is passed in a law, no rights will be curtailed or lost before someone is found by a court to have violated the law. Is that your statement? Think very carefully.
Of course, they have to go through the due process.
Okay.
That has to be
Thank you.
proven in a court, a district court. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Gomez, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for some questions?
He's got about 30 seconds. Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Sure.
The gentleman yields.
Representative Hefner, speaking of due process, what is I believe you just stated, the person is entitled to their day in court in district court, is that correct?
So the process is a complaint, an investigation, and then a case brought before district court, a receiver appointed, divestiture takes
Right.
place.
From the onset of the complaint, I believe you called it a complaint, how much notice is the respondent entitled to? How many days?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Gomez, for what purpose?
I move to extend.
Members, you've heard the motion. It requires unanimous consent. Is there objection? There is objection. Gentleman's time is not extended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, for planning purposes, it is the chair's intent to recess for lunch at the end of this bill. We do have a couple of amendments. Mr. Tenderholt, for what purpose? The following amendment, the clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Wu.
The chair recognizes Mr. Wu to explain the amendment.